On a forgotten world far from the known galaxy, an alien expedition discovered what they believed to be a relic of a long-dead species buried deep in the ruins of a human research facility. The place was ancient, overgrown with vines and twisted metal. The world had been silent for centuries, long abandoned by its creators, its secrets hidden beneath layers of dust and decay. The aliens weren't the first to find it, but they were the first to understand what it might mean to them. They had heard whispers of the humans, a race that had once ruled vast territories in the stars, but now they were nothing more than a myth, nothing more than a faint echo in the galaxy's memory. Led by Captain Vor, the team of explorers carefully made their way through the crumbling remains of the facility, the air thick with dust and the scent of something forgotten. Their lights flickered in the darkness as they moved through the corridors, their weapons ready for anything that might leap from the shadows. The discovery was too important to be left to chance. A relic of humanity could unlock mysteries beyond their understanding, something that could tip the balance of power in the galaxy in their favor. Then they found her locked away in a chamber as cold and still as the tombs of forgotten kings. The cryogenic chamber hummed quietly in the stillness of the abandoned room. The woman inside was frozen in place, her body preserved with uncanny precision, her features delicate and unaged. She was a perfect specimen, as if untouched by time itself. To the aliens, it was a miracle, a prize far beyond their wildest hopes. Captain Vor approached the chamber cautiously, his mind racing as he considered what this discovery could mean for his people. They had heard rumors of the humans, once great civilization. They knew of their wars, their technologies, their vast fleets that had once threatened to overwhelm the galaxy, and then vanished, leaving only traces of their existence scattered across the stars. This woman had to be one of them, one of the last living relics of a lost empire. They activated the chamber systems. Carefully, the cold metal doors slid open with a hiss, revealing the woman inside, her body shrouded in a fine mist that evaporated as the warm air touched her skin. Vor studied her face with growing fascination. He could see the faintest signs of life. Her chest rose and fell with each breath, though shallow and slow. The woman was alive, somehow in a deep sleep, frozen in time but still alive. They moved quickly to transport her to their ship, believing her to be a priceless artifact of an extinct species. They handled her with care, placing her in a special chamber where they could monitor her vitals. The aliens spoke amongst themselves in hushed tones, marveling at their discovery, none of them aware of the truth of the woman's nature. They did not know that she was not an artifact, but a living human who had been preserved by technology, her species still very much alive, though scattered and lost across the stars. The woman stirred in her sleep, her mind struggling to understand what had happened. She could hear voices, faint and distant, but her body was heavy, her mind clouded by a strange numbness. She tried to speak, tried to move, but nothing happened. Her fingers twitched slightly, but no one saw the signs. They mistook her for something she was not, believing her to be just a relic to be studied as a thing from a forgotten past, unaware that a new chapter of humanity's story was about to begin. Dear Evelyn Harper slowly regained consciousness, her head pounding as if it had been crushed under a great weight. Her eyes fluttered open to a world she didn't recognize. The air was thick with the hum of alien technology. The walls around her were sleek metallic structures pulsing with light. The room she was in was sterile and cold, completely different from the lab she'd worked in only days ago. She tried to move, but her limbs felt stiff, like they were made of stone. Panic surged through her chest as she realized she couldn't remember how she had gotten here. She tried to call out, but her throat was dry, and her voice was barely a whisper. She could feel her body shivering as she struggled to sit up. Her fingers brushed against a strange material unfamiliar to her. It wasn't the familiar touch of Earth's soil or the cool surface of human machines. It was something alien. As her mind cleared, she began to take in her surroundings. The chamber she was in looked like nothing she'd ever seen before. The walls seemed to shift and breathe with an otherworldly energy, and she could hear muffled voices outside the room. They were speaking in a language she didn't understand, the language of an alien race she had never encountered. She managed to push herself up into a sitting position, her heart racing with fear and confusion. The memories began to flood back slowly. She remembered the lab, the research, the explosion, the blinding light before everything went black. She had been part of a deep space mission to study a newly discovered anomaly. But something had gone wrong. The explosion, the breach, the cryogenic chamber she had been placed in for survival, it all came rushing back. She glanced around again, looking for any sign of familiarity. But everything was foreign to her. Nothing felt right. She wasn't on Earth anymore. This was a different world entirely. And she had no idea how much time had passed, or what had happened to her fellow crew members. Had they survived the explosion? Or had she been left alone? Was she the last of humanity? Desperate to understand what was happening, she reached for a console nearby. Her hands were shaking as she tried to activate it. But nothing responded. It was as if the machine was locked out from her input. Frustration built inside her as she struggled to make sense of it all. What had these aliens done to her? How had they found her? What were they planning? The door to the chamber slid open, and two tall alien figures entered. Their faces were a blur at first, but their presence sent a chill down her spine. They were humanoid in shape, but their skin shimmered like liquid metal. Their eyes glowed with an unnatural light, and their voices were soft, yet carried an edge of authority. One spoke, the other stood by silently, watching her every move. "Do not be afraid," the one who spoke said in broken English. "You are safe here." The words hit her like a slap of cold water. She blinked in disbelief. Was she hearing things? Could they really understand her language? How did they know English? She had no answers. But the aliens were calm, their tone almost soothing, though it was clear they were more fascinated than compassionate. "I'm not an artifact," she replied, her voice rough, but gaining strength. "I'm human." The alien paused, eyes narrowing in curiosity. "You are not what we thought." Dar Harper's heart skipped a beat as she realized what had happened. They had mistaken her for a relic, an ancient human artifact, and if they believed that it meant they thought humanity had been wiped out, they had no idea that she was still alive, that humanity still existed somewhere in the stars. It was then that she realized something important. These aliens had no idea who they were dealing with, no idea that she was a survivor, that humanity had an endless capacity for survival and resilience. And if she could just find a way to make them understand, perhaps she could find a way to contact Earth, to send a message that humanity was not gone. They were still out there, and they could still fight back. The aliens' eyes flickered with confusion as Dr. Harper's words hung in the air, their expressions shifting from curiosity to something darker, as if they were trying to process the implications of her statement. The one who had spoken looked at the other, and they exchanged an unspoken word, their communication silent but clear. They weren't quite sure what to make of her claim that she was human, alive, when they believed humanity to be extinct. "How is this possible?" The alien finally spoke again, its voice strained as though it was trying to grasp a concept beyond its comprehension. "You are from the time of the Great Destruction. You should be long dead. Your kind was erased from the stars millennia ago." Dr. Harper could feel the weight of their words pressing down on her, but she refused to back down. She had to make them see the truth. They had to understand that humanity was not a myth, that Earth was not a forgotten planet abandoned and lost to history. She steeled herself before responding. "I'm not a relic. I'm not from the past. I'm from the present. I'm human, and I'm alive because of a technology you don't understand." The alien blinked, slowly processing her words. Its expression was unreadable, but its posture stiffened as though it were considering the possibility of her truth. "Then why were you preserved?" it asked. "Why were you in stasis for so long?" Harper's mind raced. She knew they wouldn't believe her right away, but she also knew she had to tell them something to keep their attention focused on her. She couldn't let them dismiss her as some ancient curiosity any longer. "I was part of a mission, a space mission that went wrong. The technology you see is part of a deep space research program. We were studying anomalies in the galaxy. Something happened during the mission, and I ended up in stasis to survive. I don't know what happened after that." The alien paused again, clearly processing her words. It seemed both fascinated and puzzled by her story. It tilted its head slightly as though it were analyzing the situation, then spoke again. "You speak of anomalies and stasis, but you claim to be a survivor from an era long past. Why should we believe you?" Harper clenched her fists in frustration, but forced herself to remain calm. "You'll have to trust me," she said, her voice firm. "You might think humanity is gone, but we're still here. We've survived more than you could ever understand." She could see the doubt in their eyes, but also the flicker of something else, curiosity, or perhaps wariness. If she was going to convince them, she needed to show them she wasn't just some helpless relic. She needed to prove her value. Before the alien could respond, a sudden noise interrupted the tense exchange, a faint beeping sound coming from the device on the table next to her. It was a small communications console buried deep within the alien equipment she had been trying to access earlier. She didn't know how, but it seemed to be working now. The alien stepped closer, its eyes narrowing at the sudden noise. "What is that?" it asked sharply, but Harper was already moving her fingers over the console in a frantic attempt to use the device. "It's a distress signal," she muttered under her breath. As she worked, her hands moved quickly with the precision of someone who had spent years using every bit of technology available to her in the most impossible circumstances. A message from humanity. From Earth. The device lit up as the signal transmitted into space, and out of the alien ship. Harper's heart pounded in her chest as the message sent out across the galaxy. She had no idea who would pick it up, or if anyone would even hear it, but it didn't matter. The signal was out there, and it was all she could do for now. The alien watching her was stunned, its eyes widened, and for the first time since her awakening, Dr. Harper could see the shift in its demeanor. It wasn't just confusion now, there was something else, maybe fear, maybe respect. But one thing was clear: they weren't looking at her as a relic anymore now. They were looking at her as something else entirely, a living, breathing human, a survivor of a race they had assumed was gone forever. The silence in the room was deafening as the alien stood frozen, its glowing eyes fixed on the communications console, now blinking with life. The alien's gaze shifted from the device back to Dar Harper. Its posture had shifted, the air around them now heavy with the weight of what had just occurred. The signal she had sent was not just a cry for help, it was a beacon, a sign that humanity had not only survived, but was still out there somewhere in the vastness of space. Dr. Harper's heart pounded in her chest, but she knew she couldn't afford to relax. She needed to take control of the situation before it spiraled out of her reach. The alien remained silent, still unsure of how to respond. Its form loomed over her, as if it were trying to piece together the complexities of the human race all over again. The alien's voice broke the stillness, its tone now more serious than before. "You claim to be human, but this signal, what does it mean? You are not just one of your kind, you are the last." It spoke as if questioning the very nature of her existence. "I'm not the last," Dara Harper said quickly, trying to mask the rising panic in her voice. "I'm not the only one. I don't know how many of us are left, but I know we're not gone. We're out there, scattered across the galaxy in the shadows, hidden from those who would destroy us." The alien's glowing eyes narrowed ever so slightly. "You are hiding your kind. We've been hiding for a long time," she said, her voice steady despite the urgency coursing through her. "When humanity was pushed to the edge of extinction, we did what we had to do to survive. We scattered, we hid in remote corners of the galaxy. We used our technology to stay off the radar of those who would hunt us down. We've lived in exile, but we're still here." The alien stepped back, as if taken aback by the intensity of her words. It seemed to consider her for a long moment before speaking again. "You speak of survival and exile, but why then did you allow yourself to be preserved in stasis? If you were not the last, why did you remain hidden?" Dar Harper's eyes narrowed as she met the alien's gaze. "Because we didn't know what else to do," she said firmly. "We thought we might never find each other again, that Earth might be lost to us forever. So we preserved what we could. We preserved ourselves in hopes that one day we might rise again." The alien tilted its head, a strange gesture of curiosity. "And now that you are awake, what will you do? What is your next step?" The question caught Dr. Harper off guard, but in the next instant she knew exactly what her answer would be. "I'll find my people. I'll make sure humanity doesn't vanish quietly into the stars. I'll contact the survivors wherever they are. I'll unite us again, and I'll make sure we never fade into the shadows." The alien seemed to pause, its expression unreadable. "And what of us?" it asked finally. "What will you do if we stand in your way?" Dar Harper stared at the alien, her mind racing with possibilities. She had no idea what its true intentions were, but one thing was clear. She couldn't let them stand in the way of humanity's future. "If you stand in our way," she said, her voice cold and steady, "you'll regret it." The alien's eyes flickered as if considering her words, but before it could respond, the room was suddenly filled with a loud and urgent beeping sound, the console flashing wildly. Dr. Harper's pulse quickened as the familiar distress signal appeared on the screen. A series of words hidden in an encrypted code, one that only humans could understand. It was a response to her signal. Someone somewhere had received her message, and they were coming. She turned toward the alien with renewed urgency. "You don't understand," she said sharply. "They're coming. My people are coming, and you won't be able to stop them." The alien stared at her for a long moment before it spoke. "Then we will see who answers your call." The atmosphere in the room grew tense as Dr. Harper's words hung in the air. The alien, unmoving, seemed to process the implications of what she had said. It studied her with an intensity that almost felt predatory, though there was something else in its gaze, a flicker of uncertainty. The room hummed with energy as the flashing console kept emitting its urgent beeps, each pulse like a countdown to something inevitable. Dr. Harper's pulse raced. She knew the aliens were not going to stand idly by and allow humanity to rise again. This wasn't just about her survival anymore. It was about the survival of the human race. The signal she'd sent had opened the floodgates, and now humanity's scattered survivors would know that their own kind was still alive. Her people would come for her, but they would also come for Earth. The aliens didn't yet know the full scope of what they were facing. Suddenly, the door to the chamber hissed open, and another alien entered. This one was much larger than the first two, its armor gleaming with intricate patterns that shifted in the light. The new arrival had an air of authority, its presence commanding the room. It looked at Dr. Harper, then at the console, then back to her. "You've made a mistake." The new alien's voice was deep and cold, each word carrying the weight of power. "You think your kind can return, that your people will rise and overthrow us. You are mistaken." Dr. Harper lifted her chin, a defiant fire in her eyes. "I don't think. I know," she replied, each word strong with conviction. "Humanity is not something you can crush. We've survived worse than you can imagine." The alien's eyes flickered with an unreadable emotion. It turned to its companions and spoke in an alien tongue, one that Dr. Harper couldn't decipher. They conversed for a few moments, but she could tell the tone had shifted from curiosity to something far more ominous. "We underestimated you," the new alien said, its voice dripping with disdain. "But that ends now. You will not leave this place alive, and neither will your species. We'll make sure of it." Before Dr. Harper could respond, the room shook with a sudden violent jolt. The lights flickered, and the ship's walls trembled. It wasn't just the alien's words she had to worry about. It was the ship itself. Something was happening outside, something that was shifting the balance of power in ways the aliens could never have anticipated. Dr. Harper's breath caught in her throat as the realization dawned on her. The response wasn't just a few scattered humans. It was a fleet. The signal she had sent had been picked up by the human resistance, scattered across the galaxy. They had decoded it. They were coming for her. They were coming for all of humanity. She didn't know how many of them were out there, but she could feel it in her bones. Her people were on the move. The stars were about to burn brighter with the fire of human resolve. The larger alien turned toward the viewport, its face twisted in an expression of cold fury. "Your people will be met with resistance," it said, its voice dark with threats. "You have no idea what you're provoking." Dr. Harper stood tall, her eyes never leaving the aliens. She knew what was coming. They might have superior technology, but humans had something they would never understand: unpredictability, ingenuity, and a relentless drive to survive. She could feel it in the pit of her stomach, the deep, unwavering belief that her species would never bow down to anyone again. "We're not just survivors," she said, her voice steady. "We're the ones who make history." Just then, a loud blast rocked the ship, followed by another, and then a series of sharp, rhythmic thuds. The alien's eyes widened in disbelief. "They're here," Harper whispered under her breath. Outside, in the depths of space, the human fleet had arrived. And humanity, the species thought to be extinct, was about to show the universe exactly what it meant to be human. The ship shuddered violently as another wave of blast struck its outer hull. The lights flickered again, this time plunging the room into near darkness for a moment before the emergency lights kicked in. The alien commander turned toward the viewport, his glowing eyes narrowed in disbelief as he watched the scene unfolding in space. Outside, the vastness of the starry expanse was filled with a swarm of human ships, each one bristling with weapons and carrying the unmistakable markings of a resistance fleet. Dr. Harper could feel the tremor of the ship as the human forces began their assault. She wasn't sure how many ships had responded to her signal, but she knew it was enough to make the aliens understand that humanity was no longer hiding in the dark corners of the galaxy. They were here to reclaim their place among the stars. The larger alien turned, its voice cold and harsh. "You brought this upon yourself, human. Your people will not survive this attack. We will crush them." Dr. Harper stood taller, a quiet fire burning in her chest. "If you think this will stop us, you're gravely mistaken," she said. "You're facing an enemy you don't understand. Humanity doesn't just survive. We fight, we adapt, and we never back down." The alien's expression was unreadable, but the subtle tightening of its jaw betrayed its growing frustration. It turned to its companions, speaking rapidly in their alien tongue. They nodded in agreement, preparing for whatever was to come next. Harper knew they were mobilizing their forces, trying to regain control of the situation. But in the depths of her mind, she knew that it was too late. The tide had turned. Through the viewport, she saw flashes of energy as human ships returned fire, their weapons striking with precision. The enemy ships, once so confident in their superiority, were now scrambling to defend themselves. In the distance, massive explosions ripped through the alien fleet, tearing through shields and sending debris scattering into space. The human ships fought with a brutal tenacity, using tactics and strategies the aliens could never have anticipated. "We don't just survive," Dr. Harper muttered to herself, her eyes fixed on the unfolding battle. "We fight like hell." The alien commander turned toward her, a mixture of disbelief and anger in his eyes. "You may have brought your people here," he growled, "but you are still nothing. The power of the Empire cannot be challenged by a handful of pathetic survivors." But Dr. Harper's gaze remained unwavering. She was no longer just a helpless scientist. She was the embodiment of humanity's will to survive, and she knew that her people would never again allow themselves to be erased from the stars. The sound of more explosions rattled the ship, and the aliens around her began to move in a panicked frenzy. Their once sure-footed demeanor had crumbled under the weight of the human assault. For all their advanced technology, for all their ancient power, they had underestimated the relentless will of a species that had fought for its survival since the dawn of time. Dr. Harper took a deep breath and turned to the alien commander. "Your time is over. You've awakened something you cannot control. My people won't rest until every last one of you is gone." The alien's eyes flashed with rage, but there was a flicker of doubt now. The battle outside was spiraling out of their control. The humans were relentless, closing in with everything they had. The tide had shifted, and no matter how hard the aliens fought, the human resistance was stronger, more united, and more determined than they could ever comprehend. With a final, defiant look, Dr. Harper turned toward the door. The battle for her people's future was far from over, but humanity was no longer the underdog. They were the ones who would shape the galaxy now. The alien commander's cold stare followed Dr. Harper as she walked toward the exit. His words lingered in the air, but now they sounded hollow, a mere echo of threats that no longer held weight. The battle outside had taken a turn, and the once proud alien forces were beginning to falter under the weight of human determination. Each explosion that rocked the ship, each strike from the human fleet, only served to remind them that their superiority was nothing more than a facade. Harper knew they couldn't keep up this facade for long. The human fleet had already disabled the outer defenses, and the resistance fighters were pushing forward with a relentless precision that would leave the alien armada reeling. She had to act quickly. The window of opportunity was closing, but she could feel it. The momentum was on humanity's side now, and it would not stop until victory was theirs. As she stepped into the corridor, 2 more alien guards appeared in front of her. Their angular features and armored suits were a stark reminder of the power they once held, but now Harper saw nothing but weakness. They didn't know how to handle her, a single human who had turned the tide of an intergalactic war just by sending a signal. They didn't understand what humanity was capable of when backed into a corner. "You're not leaving this ship," one of the guards said, raising a weapon that pulsed with unfamiliar energy. Harper's eyes narrowed, but she didn't falter. "I'm not here to fight you," she said, her voice steady and cold. "I'm here to see the end of your empire." Without warning, the guards lunged at her, their weapons raised, but Harper's reflexes were sharper than they anticipated. With a swift motion, she evaded the first guard's strike, ducking under his outstretched arm. In one fluid motion, she grabbed the edge of his weapon and twisted it from his grip, sending it clattering to the floor. The second guard reacted, but Harper was already a step ahead, spinning and delivering a precise strike to his chest. The force of her blow knocked him back, sending him crashing into the wall. The guards were down, but Harper didn't stop. She had no time to waste. With a steady hand, she reached for the communication device she'd hidden on her person earlier. An encrypted signal transmitter, one of the few tools she had left to contact the human fleet. It wasn't much, but it was all she had. She tapped into the frequency, hoping the resistance fleet would hear her message before it was too late. "Harper to command," she spoke quickly, her voice urgent. "The alien fleet is on the verge of collapse, but we need to disable their main communications array before they can call for reinforcements. I'm in their command center now. We don't have much time." The static on the other end crackled, and then a familiar voice came through, full of static, but clear enough to understand. "Understood, Harper. We're already making our way to their flagship. We'll cover you. Just get to their main array." A surge of relief ran through her as she heard the confirmation. The resistance was on the move. Her people were coming for the heart of the enemy's power. Harper didn't wait for further instructions. She knew what had to be done. With quick, deliberate steps, she sprinted down the hallway toward the core of the ship. The closer she got to the central communications array, the more heavily guarded the area became. She could feel the weight of every passing second as she moved with purpose, determined to ensure that the human fleet had a clear path to finish what they had started. No more hesitation, no more fear. The end of the alien empire was near, and humanity was ready to take its rightful place in the stars. But there was still one final obstacle to face: the alien commander. And this time, he wouldn't be underestimating her. Harper reached the heart of the ship, the walls around her vibrating with the intense pressure of the battle raging outside. The air smelled of ionized metal, and the faint hum of alien machinery filled the corridor. Her footsteps echoed in the silence, each one a reminder that time was slipping away. The communications array was just beyond the doors ahead, but she knew that the alien commander would be there waiting. He wouldn't let her reach it without a fight. As she approached the reinforced doors, a voice crackled through her comms. It was the fleet commander, a voice filled with urgency. "Harper, we've intercepted their reinforcements. You have about 5 minutes before they regroup and try to turn the tide. Get to the array. Now." She didn't need any more encouragement. The weight of her mission pressed heavily on her, but her resolve only solidified. She was the last line of defense for humanity's future, and she would see it through to the end. With a steady breath, she activated the door's override mechanism. The metallic hiss of the sliding door echoed through the corridor as it opened, revealing the alien command center. Inside, the alien commander stood by a large console, his back to her. His form was imposing, almost as if the shadows themselves clung to him. He hadn't expected her to make it this far. The look of surprise flickered for a brief moment across his face, but it was quickly replaced by cold fury. "You," he growled, his voice low and dangerous. "You are a fool if you think you can end us. This ship is the heart of our empire. And once it's gone, so are your people." Harper didn't flinch. Her eyes locked onto his, a fire in her chest igniting. "You didn't learn from the last time, did you?" she said, stepping forward. "You might have thought humanity was gone, but we're not. We're survivors. And we're not just fighting for our past. We're fighting for our future." The alien's eyes narrowed, his grip tightening around the console. Without warning, he lunged at her, his claws extended, but Harper was ready. She sidestepped with a swift fluidity, using his momentum against him, and sent him crashing into the console. The lights flickered again, a surge of energy pulsing through the room as the alien commander struggled to regain his footing. "You should have stayed hidden," he spat, his voice laced with venom. "Your resistance will crumble before us. The Empire will rise again." Harper didn't hesitate. She reached for the console controls, her fingers flying across the interface. The comms system was the key. If she could disable their ability to send out reinforcements, the Resistance fleet would be able to wipe them out once and for all. With a few deft movements, she initiated the shutdown sequence, triggering a cascade of alarms and flashing red lights. She could feel the commander's presence behind her, his fury palpable, but she didn't look back. "I don't need to hide," Harper said quietly, her voice filled with determination. "We've survived too long in the shadows. It's time for humanity to take its place among the stars." The alien commander roared in frustration and charged once more, but this time Harper was ready. With a quick motion, she grabbed a nearby weapon from the console's rack, a sleek, energy-based rifle, and turned to face him. The blast sent him reeling back, his form writhing in pain as he stumbled to the floor. The weapon's energy pulse left a glowing scorch mark on his armor, a mark of what humanity was capable of now. The alien commander struggled to rise, but his movements were slow, weakened. Harper didn't waste time. She stepped forward and delivered the final blow, a direct hit to his chest. The commander crumpled, his body hitting the ground with a dull thud. It was over. The ship's hum began to die down, the ship's systems shutting off one by one as the communications array was fully disabled. Harper let out a long breath, the weight of her victory settling over her. Her people were safe. The galaxy had been given a new chance, one where humanity would no longer hide, no longer cower in fear. She activated her comms again, hearing the voice of the fleet commander. "Harper, we're in position. The alien fleet is breaking apart. We've won." Dr. Harper's heart swelled with pride as she looked at the fallen commander. "This is only the beginning," she said. "We've won this battle, but now humanity will take back the stars. The universe would never be the same again."